to the UEPG Sustainability Awards 2019. Please take your seats.
And this is our most important event. We have every 30 years, and we have been very happy to have 53 entries of good examples of sustainable activities in the aggregates industry.
Well, UEPG is the European Aggregates Association. We are represented in 24 countries in Europe, and we're representing industry which produces 3 billion tons every year, which is demanded by society. We have a network of 15,000 companies and 26,000 extraction sites across Europe.
This is certainly the biggest event of its kind in Europe, and we've had a record number of entries this year, 53 across 9 awards. It's very important to explain to the powers that be and to the general public how aware the industry is of sustainability, biodiversity, and all the important environmental aspects of what a modern industry should be involved in and should be interested in.
Please welcome William Neal from the European Commission, advisor to the Director for the Circular Economy and Green Growth.
So, as we move forward, we will be looking, as we prepare the new Circular Economy Action Plan, we'll be looking particularly at the impacts on climate. These have been very much underestimated. The UN has just published a report which says that about 50% of climate impact can be directly related to extraction and processing of natural resources. That's not just you, we're talking about agriculture, of course. They also say, and here we have an important link to biodiversity, 90% of biodiversity loss is linked to extraction and processing of natural materials. So if we don't look at how we can make those processes more circular, we won't get to our targets on biodiversity, we won't get to our targets on climate. Finally, I would say, I know that looking at your statistics, you have 200,000 people working in your sector. One thing that we haven't looked at so far in terms of impact is the impact on employment and on skills. We're talking about an economic transition, and I think we really need to look in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, what are the skills that we will need in order to make sure that we can make circular systems work, and where will the jobs be in circular systems. I'm convinced that there will be many more jobs, but there will also be dislocation. So to finalise, to sum up, you have to be part of the picture. It's very important, as I say, that circular economy is really about all those parts of the loop. It's about understanding where the value is in the economy, and you know far better than we do in terms of aggregates, in terms of building materials and so on, where that value is, how you can make the most of that in circular systems. So we're talking about not only trying to reduce impacts on biodiversity and climate, but also how you can actually get that value out. It's a very nice way of tackling the different pillars of sustainability. Your prizes, I think, are a fantastic way of showing your commitment to all of those pillars of sustainability, and also we have 3 pillars of sustainability: the economic, environmental and social, but also to all of the sustainable development goals. So I wish every one of the winners this evening the very best. My own congratulations, and I hope you have a very pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Neal. There are some good words there, and it makes me feel very positive about the future. And let's get going. It's so exciting. Please welcome to the stage Selim Emre Gence from E-MAK. Thank you. So, yeah.
The Honourable President, Thilo Johem, distinguished representatives of European Commission and EU institutions, members of Union Européenne des Producteurs de Granulats, ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful and honored to be in such privileged organization. My presentation is about an aggregate factory for more sustainable production that is called Megaton. But before I explain what Megaton is and how it works, I will give you some information about who we are and what we do. We are a group of companies, Simge Group, mainly deals with two types of business. The first one is Simge-Mat. We deal with quarry management, aggregate production, asphalt, concrete production, and also we build roads. Our second business is E-MAK. E-MAK produces aggregate and asphalt plants and also other road building equipments. In this picture, we see a quarry that we operate as Simge. By the way, we produce around 5 million tons of aggregate and 1.5 million tons of asphalt each year. And every equipment you see in this picture, including the asphalt plants, the aggregate systems, the bitumen tanks, is produced by our company E-MAK. Having these two types of but deeply related businesses under the same roof gives us the opportunity to try new ideas, to develop new ideas and test them under the real working conditions. I will give you an example of that we have begun in 1994. This was a system that we call Challenger. The idea behind Challenger was to work with ballast aggregate with very low moisture content. And by doing so, we were crushing, sieving, and stockpiling and feeding the aggregate to asphalt plant in a totally closed environment. That gave us a great reduction in energy consumption and also CO2 emissions and dust emissions. But this system, in time, we developed and made it much more sophisticated than its first version, was usually used in order to produce asphalt and always integrated to asphalt plants. I would like to tell you a little bit more about how it works. Like, as I said, the ballast aggregate with lowest moisture is used in our asphalt production, halving the energy consumption, therefore the CO2 emissions. So it was a very successful project for energy reduction. And in 2008, we've been invited to an E&E Congress in Copenhagen, where we made a presentation about Challenger. Since then, time passed, and in the last 10 years, our lives have changed drastically. The word climate change has become a fact rather than a subject of debate. And the word sustainability has become a must rather than an option or a choice. So we, as equipment producers, we had to focus on doing something about it. So this time we focused our attention to the quarries. So we tried and think what we don't want in the quarries. Secondary crushing, after the secondary crushing, the dust that takes place was something that we didn't want. Also, we didn't want to store fine aggregates in our systems. So no more huge and dusty aggregate stockpiles in our work sites. We wanted to eliminate that. And secondly, we all use water pulverization in our quarries, but then we thought, okay, water pulverization may reduce dust emissions for a while, but somebody has to get rid of this water. Let's say we are producing asphalt. This water in it, we have to pay a lot of money, a lot of energy to get rid of it. Then more energy means more CO2 emissions. So we had to get rid of the water pulverization also. And the third thing we didn't want in our quarries was to use the lorries and trucks in the quarries because of two reasons. The first reason is they move around, they create a lot of dust. And the second reason is they create a lot of CO2. They spend a lot of energy. So we want to get rid of them too. So here it is, Megaton. Megaton is an aggregate factory, about 35 meters high, can store up to 3,000 tons of aggregate and 10,000 tons of aggregate per day production capacity. It is directly connected with asphalt plant, concrete plant, and cold mix plant. Again, we are working with ballast, clean, and lowest moisture aggregate, therefore halving the CO2 and dust emissions. I will show you a picture of the control unit of the Megaton. As you see, all the aggregate operations, all the material that is produced, It can be with an asphalt plant, as I say, with a concrete plant or cold mix plant, can be seen and monitored and controlled from one screen thanks to our Industry 4.0 automation system, and can be controlled with only one personnel. After this, I will show you a very short film to show you how Megaton actually works. Material. This is the entrance of Megaton. We can use any type of crusher, including cone crushers, vertical shaft crushers. We carry the aggregate to the sieving unit, where we filter all the dust that takes place in crushing and in sieving. We can use this dust either to filter it or to use it as an industrial product. The material is classified according to its size, and it never free falls. It follows a certain route in order to prevent segregation. And we can use our aggregate for any purpose, for cold mix, for concrete, for asphalt, this is a quarry working, producing aggregate, asphalt, cold mix, concrete simultaneously, no dust, less CO2. Ten minutes is such a short time for me to explain all the features and answer all the questions about this new aggregate preparation system. But we'll be happy to answer your questions at our stand here, and we will be even more happy to welcome you at our work sites to see it working in the real conditions. We will be very happy to have you. And at the end of this presentation, if there will be any applauding, please let it be for my father, who's the inventor and designer of this project. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for that, and the stand is just here for later.
What inspired us about this event and the general goals of the UEPG is they are for the Green Deal for the world. That is more sustainable way of doing the aggregate business, and that gave us a lot of inspiration. And we felt like, okay, there are some people who feel like us to do things better, to do things in a more sustainable way.
To be honest, it's the first time that I saw a plant like this, a vertical plant. it's very interesting also the safety and logistic parts, because you close the circle with the asphalt plants and with the ready-mix plant, and so you reduce also the risk of accident for health and safety, and you optimize the production as well the environment for the dust.
Concept itself to go toward reducing the emissions, the dust, CO2 and all the other ones, is always very welcomed. And I guess this is a step toward that.
One that's really caught my eye has been the Megaton. Very, very impressive setup from E-MAK. Very interesting, obviously, to myself as someone who writes all about the aggregate sector. This is a machine which is capable of very large volume production on a very small footprint when you consider all the elements that have been taken out of the process, by able to do such large amounts of aggregate on one machine. It's also extremely good for the environment in terms of dust suppression. There's also improvements in terms of, obviously, it's cheaper to run, you've got less labour costs because you're taking layers of production out. All in all, it's a very, very impressive new addition to the aggregates production scene.